So welcome everyone. It's really great to see everyone. So we're gonna go ahead and get started because we have a packed agenda for today. So first, what I'm going to do is just introduce this year's team, and Francesco will then discuss the pre-conference program. We'll talk about competitive program as well. So Olga will cover that. We'll announce the awards for the best paper, the best proposal of the year. Then we'll update you guys on the engagement activities. And then finally, we'll finish off with a discussion around ESG strategies. So Anita McGann and Caroline Flammer graciously agreed to provide their views about research on this topic and how it differs from our traditional approaches to strategy. Okay, so let's then get going. And so let me first introduce our terrific team for this year. So I'm Alenka Kacperczyk, and I'm the IG chair. Olga Hahn is our program chair for this year. Francesco Castellaneta is the associate program chair. And then we have our terrific representatives at large. So it's Jorge Guzman, Elena Plasenkova, Eli Song, Ivana Naumovska, Valentina Asenova, and Thomas Teodorovich. And so all those folks have put together their efforts and time so that we can have the program for this year. And so this is the, let's first go to the pre-conference program, and I'm gonna pass it over to Francesco to update us on this.
Thank you, Alenka, and welcome everyone. So I'll briefly introduce the pre-conference program since it's already available on the SMS website. So the pre-conference is scheduled for the weekend before the main event. So it's basically Saturday, September 30 and Sunday, October the 1st. I would like to thank the representatives at large who have organized the two workshops of our interest group. So they have done a wonderful job. So we have lined up two workshops and three panels. I'll start from the first workshop. It's on Saturday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Olenka, you can move next. Thanks. And we are hosting basically this workshop titled Tenure Package, How Do Letter Writers Read and Evaluate it. This year, it has been organized by Elena and Tomasz. The workshop will examine the tenure letter package, somehow with the goal of supporting young assistant professors and postdoctoral candidates in this process. Our experienced faculty during this workshop will somehow shed light on the challenges of letter drafting on one end, discuss the criteria for tenure evaluations, and they will somehow offer some guidance on basically how to face this process. The second part of the workshop will see junior scholar presenting their research to the established, to our scholars. The initial part is accessible to all, but participation in the second part demands registration. Second is the junior scholar paper development workshop. This workshop is basically a workshop which aims to equip early career scholars with tools to perfect their research. The workshop has an engaging panel discussion, then a Q&A session, and subsequent rounds of feedback. We have an impressive group of speakers in this junior scholar paper development workshop. And this workshop is organized by different interest groups. Thank you. And now I would like to spotlight the three panels scheduled for Sunday. So the first panel is organized by Saverio Favaron and is titled Strategy in Competitive Industry, Evidence from Arts, Cuisine, and Entertainment. It will run from 8 a.m. to 9:15. This session delves into strategy research within creative sectors like art, music, film, and cuisine. Blends together organizational and strategy scholars, and the panelists will discuss mostly theories on differentiation, conformity, distinctiveness, recognition, and status. The second workshop is organized by Sandeep Pillai, and it's called Regular Contribution in Historical Methods in Strategy Research. It's scheduled from 9:30 to 10:45 a.m. and is co-sponsored by the Research Methods community. This panel will focus on historical methods in strategy research, and it's going to be focused around best practices, historical methodological solution, how to evaluate historical studies, and the challenges of working with historical data. So a super cool methodological panel. The last one is organized by Ivana Nomovska and is titled AI and Competitive Advantage. What are the challenges and opportunities for business and research? This panel will evaluate the impact of AI on strategy theories. We'll examine somehow issues related to how AI is impacting decision-making, displacement, and other things like efficiency. The panel will give a sort of, will focus on the broad implications of AI on strategic management, but we'll try to really focus on market leaders and laggards in a context where AI gets more and more important. And with this, I'd like to hand it over to Olga.
Thank you, Francesca. And thank you all for being here. It's so nice to see you on Zoom, but hopefully we'll also see you in person. So very quickly, I mean, if we can go to the next slide. The competitive program, as always, is very competitive. There are currently 23 papers, so one essentially fell out because the authors did not register for the conference, even though the paper was accepted. So we have 23 papers across 6 paper sessions with 2 common ground sessions. And so let me walk you through the process. So as you can see, as always, we get lots of submitted proposals. And this year we used 122 reviewers, which I will mention in the end. Thank you all for doing your job and recommending some proposals to be accepted. As you can see, the rate of acceptance is pretty much similar to last year's. And as I mentioned, in total, we have 11 program sessions with one that is joined with another IG. So the program looks like this. I will let Francesco already describe the first 3 sessions on Sunday. I'm just going to show you kind of the layout for the rest of them. As you can see, we have a variety of chairs, variety of sessions on a variety of topics. This year, we had a lot more submissions on ecosystems and platforms, so I'm just going to highlight that. As you can see, we have sessions on competitive dynamics, as well as innovation and competition. And also we had another increase in submissions on non-market strategy. So we have a whole session on that. Well, it takes a village. So I want to recognize some of the proposals that were nominated for awards, as well as some of the reviewers that helped us to get through this competitive program that you just saw. So without further ado, I'd like to walk you through the 2 main awards for the proposals that we have as an IG, and then we will move to the reviewers and reviewer awards. So the first award that we have, it was introduced in 2020, so it's relatively recent for our IG. The first one is the award for creativity in research, and then the other one is for rigor in research. The process is the following. So as the program chair, I had to select the best proposals after the blind review. And of course, some of them were nominated by our reviewers. Then the IG chair and the assistant program chair would have to rank them, the blind proposals, and comment on the impact. And then the result is that we had 4 finalists and 1 winner for each award. And I think a lot of our members that join us today were probably among those finalists and among the winners. So it's nice to have you here. So are you ready to find out? The first award for creativity, these are our finalists. And as you can see, if you attend the conference in person, you can see essentially 3 of them in one session in 2648 in Room 5. I believe that's on Monday. And these are the finalists. I'm not going to read them out loud. You can all see who they are.
Mhm.
And the winner is the winners are Joao and Stanislav both from University of South Carolina. I don't see them here, but they will be receiving our certificate for this award. And the proposals on antecedents of corporate political activity in emerging market, the case of Ukraine, has won this award. So congratulations. The next one is for rigor. And these are our finalists. Again, I'm going to let you look at them. 2 of them are presented in Linden room at the session 2647. And then the other 2 are in Chestnut West if you wanted to come and see them being presented. So again, a variety of topics. They were all nominated for rigor because of the empirical rigor papers. And the winner is the firms value court enforceability of non-compete agreements, a revealed preference approach. Congratulations. I don't know if you are here or not, but this proposal won the award for rigor. Thank you. And now I would like to recognize outstanding reviewers that we've had help us with the process. So essentially, those reviewers that provided very insightful, detailed, and constructive feedback were the ones that were receiving this award. And again, it takes a village. Thank you all. But here they are. If you are in the room, congratulations. Thank you so much for your help with this process. I'm not going to read out all the names, but these are our best reviewers for this year. Thank you, guys. And next, I believe I also wanted to recognize our outgoing members who are, as you are aware, Olenka, Jorge, Elena, and Ellie. Thank you guys for all of your work. I believe you're still going to be our members and our reps at large and as well as program chair until the end of the conference. So hold on till then. But thank you. We just wanted to recognize you as always, and you will also be receiving some memorabilia from our IG. And with that, I believe I'm turning gears and giving the floor to Jorge, right, to update us on engagement activities at the conference.
Super. I am really sad to leave, by the way. So I had updates sort of from 2 angles. One, we had this circle initiative last year that, you know, it went all around. But Giara had a lot of leadership getting me and Elisa at the time, and now with Ivana organized to doing this. And Aldona, Martin, and Duyun actually came in and did a lot of leadership in this process. And we created the Circle Initiative. We came up all together, but particularly then with 2 goals, right? First, we want to create local opportunities to meet outside SMS conferences and then experience more the practice of strategy, right? So we thought as a competitive strategy IG, we had sort of a bit of a broader mandate that we could think about it a little more. And so I have a couple of updates on that, and then I'll tell you about the engagement activities in the conference. And so on the next slide, so we did 3 things on this circle effort. First, there were 2 meetings in Milan. Martin, one for an aperitivo in January, one for a football game. My understanding is that they were quite a success, and people in Milan enjoyed an opportunity to meet and, you know, across the IG. And so hopefully Martin is going to keep leading that. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us to meet with oftentimes we'll just meet with the people local to us when at a conference. So for example, I never meet people from NYU until I go to Toronto this time. And I think creating those connections may be better. And second, we did this interview. Xiaoling did this interview with Hilde Fay, Xiaoying, and with Hilde Fay, who's a consultant that has been doing strategy for many years. And they're hoping to post it online, and we'll reach out to SMS to exactly what's the best way to do this. But I think that was that's very nice. It's actually quite interesting to hear the practice of strategy, and I think it gives us, to me at least, it did kind of spark some thinking about exactly where, as a competitive strategy, the field can go. So that's on the community side. On the engagement side, so there's the video, by the way. The next slide. So we do have a social program. Oh, my numbers got. I'm sorry for the number indexes there. But Ivana and I set up a social program that includes a few things, right? First, we're very excited. Our official IG social event through SMS is joined with cooperative strategy, and I think it's going to be really fun. But we also have other 4 events that are kind of more touch points for IG members if they want to get together, if they're looking for a social moment. So on Friday, if you're looking where to hang out and you're not sure what to do, you can always attend our events on Friday. We'll be grabbing drinks at Village Genius Pubs. These other ones are self-pay, but they're all kind of pretty inexpensive. They're very simple, right? On Saturday during lunch, that's more during the lunch or SMS. We just make sure to have a table to reach out. That's not just meeting friends, but we'll make an effort to be there for our IG members in case they wanna sit with us. On Sunday at the morning, I'm very excited about this. We're gonna go to eat beaver tails. If you don't know this, it's a tradition of Toronto. There's these huge pancakes that you fill with Nutella, and it's like a 20-minute walk from the hotel. I think it's gonna be a very nice experience. We'll grab coffee. And then we have our IG meeting, and then on Monday we just have a get together for coffee, just for those that want to get the date started. So we have submitted these dates to the SMS calendar. We'll send out an email to the whole IG letting them know about these events. We thought it was better to do it just a week or 2 before. So in the next couple of days, look out for that. And if you're around, we'd love to see you in all these get-togethers. That's it.
Perfect. So I think that's it for the update. So thank you very much, everyone. And this actually leaves us with the whole half an hour for our discussion forum. And so this is last but not least, we actually have amazing speakers today. I'm so grateful that both Anita and Caroline said yes to me. And to all of us, neither of them really needs an introduction, so I'm not gonna take time for that. So I asked Anita and Caroline to share their views on ESG strategies, and in particular thinking about how they might differ or relate to traditional strategy from the research perspective. So how should we be thinking about studying both, perhaps applying our toolkits and frameworks from traditional strategy to ESG? So what we're gonna do is start off with Anita to present her perspective. Then we're gonna go to Caroline, and then we'll open it up for questions, have time for reflections and reactions. So with that, let me hand it over to Anita.
Thank you so much, everybody, and thanks to all the leadership of SMS for everything you do for us, and for the division, the interest group, for everything that you all are doing. Can you hear me, Alenka?
Good.
Yeah. So thanks, everybody. So the answers to these questions, I think, are yes, ESG is the future of strategy. We're already working in many of these domains, and I want to say a little bit more about that, because I actually think the framing of ESG will change, but the substance of the idea, I think, will continue and be persistent. I have a few things to say about how ESG strategies may differ from traditional strategy research. And I do think that the pursuit of firm profit in an untethered way, as an unambiguously socially good thing to do, that idea is fading. So those are the headlines of my remarks here. So let me say, why I think ESG will continue. So first of all, the G in ESG governance is a core strategy topic. It's something that, as we think about how organizations should be governed, the allocation of decision rights, the ways in which decisions are made among senior executive teams, the ways in which stakeholders come together even to form a firm in the first place, whether or not the firm is the best way to govern the achievements of collective action by stakeholders. Those questions are already strategy questions. They're topics that are covered in the Strategic Management Society meetings each year, and the governance part of ESG, I think, is well established in our field. The S in ESG, the social piece, I think has been of increasing interest to us and is also already pretty well covered. Tomasz and I have a paper in which we're talking about a firm in Brazil that works with low-income workers and provides them with general education, and we talk about why the firm does that and how it benefits from that and how the workers benefit from that. The social impact of firm and other corporate activity is a core topic across the field, and many people in this room, I mean, Olga, everybody working on, Francesco, working on topics. You're thinking about the future of medicine and the life sciences and the development of new pharmaceutical innovations. You're working on something of great social consequence. So the S in ESG is also, I think, very well covered. The big one that I think is going to be of increasing relevance is environment. Now, it's hard to imagine that that it could be even more important now in the future than it is now. What I think we've been grappling with as strategists is a unit of analysis question, a question about how we engage with issues relating to the environment. And there's a lot more work that we have to do there. I do think that some of our core ideas about collective action, about the ways that organized people get stuff done, will be of great relevance to environmental analysis and analysis of climate change and the ecological crisis that we have. But we also have a pretty deep problem, which is that the untethered pursuit of firm profit does not always lead to constructive environmental impact. And so we're going to have to come up with new ideas and ways of thinking about the aggregation of corporate activity and the targeting of environmental concerns and innovation in the interest of advancing a sustainable environmental impact. We're going to have we still have a lot of work to do, and we might have to set aside some of our core ideas in order to be able to pursue that. Finally, last thing I want to say, I think the term ESG is going to fall apart on us. I don't, we're going to be facing increasing environmental crises akin to the pandemic. That's going to drive our attention and cause us to think much more deeply and broadly about how to engage with issues relating to the environment and environmental preservation of biodiversity. The ESG framing is getting weaponized. It's not regarded in the way that it's not sufficiently nuanced to support that effort. So yes, the answer to the question is yes, but I think the term ESG is going to evolve. Over to you, Caroline.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for the invitation. And also my thanks to the entire team for all the service. I know how much service that is. So thank you. And I cannot imagine how happy those folks are who are actually outgoing. Anyway, so it's a hard thing to follow, Anita, but let me try my best here. I'm not going to answer these questions directly, okay? But let me take a step back and just look outside of the window. We are in the midst of multiple crises: climate change, biodiversity loss, social inequality, poverty, etc. Our typical response, not just our meaning as strategy scholars, but also more generally academics and society at large, our typical response is it's the government's responsibility to take actions and to regulate. Now, no doubt that would most likely be the most effective way to fix this crisis. But let's look outside of the window again. Whatever the governments are doing, it's not sufficient. That's my very diplomatic way of saying it. Okay, so otherwise we wouldn't be in the midst of this crisis. And so this puts the spotlight on the private sector, both the real economy and the financial sector. What can the private sector do? And to what extent to help mitigate these grand societal challenges we are facing? Again, climate change, biodiversity loss, social inequality, poverty, pick your favorite crisis. Now, when you look at the current practices, our theories, our frameworks, our models, and ESG practices, our thinking, etc., is really confined to the portfolio level and the firm level. What do I mean by that? And so this partially answers this question already, correct? So in a sense of what do I mean by that? Let's look at the real economy side, given that this is strategy here. There's a lot of debate about, for example, the mandatory disclosure of Scope 1 emissions. So just to make sure everybody's on the same page, Scope 1 emissions are the direct emissions of a company. Scope 2 are the emissions of the energy that you consume. Scope 3 would be the emissions of your customers and your suppliers. Now, if the SEC, for example, were to mandate the disclosure of Scope 1, maybe Scope 2 emissions, first of all, this would be a major improvement in this world, because at this moment, in most countries around the world, there is no such mandatory disclosure. Yet, if we don't include Scope 3, what's likely going to happen, and this is what we actually already observe happening, is that companies start divesting their most emission-intensive operations, or they outsource them to some supplier. So on file, the current way we assess the environmental performance of companies is Scope 1 becomes Scope 3, and it looks like they cleaned up their act, correct? So it looks like the way we assess the environmental performance, it looks like companies will clean up their act. But nothing really changes with respect to climate change, because all they do is shift their emissions somewhere else. Scope 1 becomes Scope 3. Let me give you another example. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Very sensitive topic, important topic, especially in the US. Now, the current way we as researchers, as strategy researchers, as well as in practice, the way we currently ask the questions is how many women and minorities do you have on the board? How many of them do you have in top management? These are very important questions, no doubt. Don't get me wrong here. But it's unlikely sufficient, because it might just lead to a reshuffling of talent from one top company to the other. So it looks good for the company that hires a highly talented woman or minority. It looks great, but nothing changes with respect to the system, because they just poached that woman from somewhere else, correct? So it does not mean greater accessibility and greater social mobility. Two more examples, I'm going to get to my point and promise. Another example would be, again, the way we currently, I'm always talking about academia as well as practice, the way we currently assess the environmental and social performance of companies and investors is we look at the direct actions of the company. So let's go back to the DEI policies. For example, we look at whether a company has appropriate DEI policies in place for its own employees. But we fail to assess whether or not and to what extent the company lobbies against or in favor of, for example, DEI policies at the state level, at LGBT. So, for example, what you might then have is a company that has relatively good HR practices in place. In our research, it would look like, oh, fantastic company. But the lobbying department then lobbies against LGBT career rights at the state level or against abortion rights at the state level. Correct? We don't capture this at this moment. We don't capture this in the metrics, nor do we capture it in our research. That also means we cannot assess or reward or punish companies and investors that actually really trigger negative systemic change. And the last example I'm going to make, so going back to strategy, if you think about it, the objective is to achieve and sustain a competitive advantage. There's an inherent time dimension here to achieve and sustain a competitive advantage in the long term. Yet how many theories in management consider time as an element of the theory? We just ignore the time. Maybe it's because I'm Swiss that I deeply care about time here. But we are missing a big picture. Anyway, I'm going to stop here.
Thank you so much. I think we have some time for Anita to react and then for Caroline to react to Anita, if you wish to do that. So going back to Anita.
Thank you, Alenka, and thank you, Caroline. If I had to summarize in one sentence, the relationship between what I said and what Caroline said, I would say that all of the things that Caroline suggested we need to do, I basically said, we're doing. And she's saying that we need to do them. And the way I reconcile those two things is, in my own view, is to say there's no barrier to our doing it. And there are people within the field who have started to work on this agenda, including very notably Caroline herself, who is working on many of these topics. We have to, we have to pursue this agenda of better measurement of social impact. We have to pursue this agenda of starting to develop new theory on the relationship between corporate performance and competitive advantage and these kinds of social outcomes. Maybe because I'm, old or something, I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic and hopeful about the future because of the work that I've been reading by many of you in this room, right? That this is happening. It's beginning. It's happening. There's still a lot more to do, but it's happening. Like Caroline, I am very worried about the unit of analysis issues relating to the environment. I've been working on this paper with Tima and Sven and Marcus on the ecological fallacy, which is about how aggregation of firm outcomes at the firm level doesn't necessarily lead to outcomes at the aggregate level that are desirable. The pursuit of profits by individual companies doesn't enhance social welfare unambiguously. So there's a lot of work to do, I think, to try to get our heads around that. The environmental piece for me is the most intractable for strategy scholars, and we've got to figure out ways into that problem using our current toolkits. And there's more work to do there than I think in any other area. Caroline.
So I agree and disagree with Anita. On the one hand, I agree with you that the unit of analysis is really troublesome, and we need to move away from, in finance, it would be portfolio level thinking. In strategy management, it's rather firm level thinking, correct? We need to move away to just look at firm performance at the firm level 1 year out, maybe 2 years out. We need to adopt a much longer time horizon and to take on a systems focused approach. To really consider to what extent do we actually help mitigate system level challenges, and maybe we can. What are the boundaries and where do we need policy? But then that triggers then the question, okay, there are limitations obviously for the private sector to help mitigate any of these system level challenges. So we do need effective policy, but how do we get there, taking into account political capture of regulation, for example? Anyway, and so I do think the adoption of a systems focused approach is really essential here. And I'm equally excited as Anita because I do see some academics start working in this space, correct? And I think there's a shift needed. This is not just on ESG. There's a shift needed really in management more generally. I'll stop there and open. I think we open up for questions or discussion.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much to both of you. And let's open it up. So anyone who'd like to chime in? We have about 15 minutes, so plenty of time for a good discussion.
Can I ask you a question of you, Olga? Olga, are you optimistic about this?
It's actually like I was, as you guys were talking, I heard these themes, right? That we need the system level analysis. We need other metrics. We need to look at impact. And I'm finally working with PhD students, right? I have my first one on the market this year, and she is looking into climate change. And it's such a difficult topic to study, right, from strategy lens, because it's so narrow, because we focus only on firm performance. And so the first thing, and she's coming in from health economics, and she's trying to adopt those kind of methods and the lens into this area. And she's facing challenges with publishing all of that work because we have not caught up, because we don't have reviewers who value this work and think about, well, how do we, go about even studying these topics and strategy, right? I'm glad that you guys are changing the views. We're all working on this hard, but there is no sort of critical mass yet. So I don't know, like part of me is optimistic because of her, but the other part also sees the other, of course, publishing is hard regardless of what you study, but it's also the field is not fully there yet on board with these topics to accept them. Although look at where we are in the competitive strategy IG, right? Like one of the foundational IGs, and we're discussing these topics. So that's why I'm also optimistic, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. If I may chime in actually on this, so Olga, then do you think that the bigger problem, or should we actually be framing this as sort of this division between phenomenon focus versus theory-based research? Because I guess what I'm hearing you say is that partially the difficulty comes from the fact that as we study these important phenomena like climate change and so on, there is still some push to really think about how we contribute to competitive strategy more broadly. And so should we be thinking about how to really find those intersections where looking at a particular phenomenon gives us some theoretical insights that generalize to other phenomena that are relevant for strategy? Or should we be just saying, you know what, like our job is to really find out important patterns about the world and document them and improve them. And so who cares about theoretical contribution, right? Like how should we be thinking about this this division and finding the sweet spot between the two?
Because the two go together, right? And it is the biggest challenge. Mm-hmm. And just through her lens, like she's been struggling. She finally found a space in the behavioral theory sort of strategy, right? Like and dealing with multiple goals of how organizations kind of work having those multiple goals and prioritizing among them. So like there is still a lot to say to strategy given this space. And like Caroline said, right, like there's still, if you take the long-term view, this is your competitive strategy. This is affecting your competitive advantage, but also survival in the long term, right? Yeah, I would love to hear. Oh, Jorge, go ahead.
Oh no, I had a question. Go ahead. Sorry, finish. I just.
Well, I was going to say, like, I would love to hear what Caroline and I need to think on that point.
I actually had exactly the same question indeed, because it's So wait, what? Maybe Anita and Caroline want to respond before I ask my question.
I mean, to me, I agree with Olga that we're pluralistic. We need it all. Okay, there's a big theoretical challenge in developing the systems theory that Caroline mentioned, and that Tima has been advocating. And it's a lot of work to do that and to think about that. We've had prior efforts in the field of management to try to model systems, and they haven't engaged competitive strategy scholars at the level needed in order to be able to implement them robustly. But just briefly to mention, we need to think about, so collective action, for example, we have a lot of work in the field of strategy on collective action social movements that could be deployed directly into questions relating to the environment now. We have a lot of work in the field of strategy on measuring stakeholder, a lot of work, we need more, but we on understanding and measuring stakeholder impact of firm behavior, and that could be brought into this conversation. We need kind of all hands on deck to deal with the climate crisis. I personally think of firms as tools for getting things done. I'm interested in organizations much more broadly than firms, and ecosystems of organizations that can be deployed in tandem to try to accomplish things. So I'm less fussy about whether this is government's responsibility or firm's responsibility. I see these as tools of human endeavor. Let's figure out what needs to get done and then design the organizations that we need, whether they're private firms or public firms or NGOs or some combination of these things, in order to make progress, let's say, on important technology developments around battery technology and storage, around distributional techniques and so on. So for me, all of this is competitive strategy. We all, we want to deploy innovative and competitive and efficient organizations under all these different forms to try to make progress in these domains. And it's our pluralism, our combined effort that will be more powerful than any individual effort.
So I agree with Anita. I do think this is competitive. So there's no doubt in my mind, this is competitive advantage, competitive strategy, sorry, in a sense of you want the firm to survive in the long term, correct? If you want the firm to survive in the long term, you need to consider the ecosystem. You cannot just ignore it. Now we just need to bring it into our theories, into our research. Now, in terms of what Olga mentioned about kind of reviewing process, etc., I'm actually less pessimistic about it. And that is, just think about it. When we started our career about 10 years ago or so, there was hardly any top tier journal with a senior editor there who actually works in sustainability. Pretty much nobody. That has fundamentally changed. Pretty much now, each single top tier journal in management has at least one, if not several, associate editors that work in this space. And I do think there's lots of promise. I'm not saying this is easy to publish, but I think this makes me hopeful that, we were already standing on the shoulders of giants and are still standing on the shoulders of giants. I think we can move this field forward. I'm hopeful there.
Right. I'll jump in now with I guess it was a narrower question, but Olga was talking about how her student is really contributing to organizations that have multiple goals, and that was consistent with what Anita was saying about her work and how it's not about maximizing profits is not enough. And, in a sense, you sort of keep wondering, well, what are these firms going to optimize towards? Now, Caroline's view, I think, if I can summarize it, was if you maximize on profits, it's more that they're like, managers seem a little bit short-sighted. And if they were actually, if you just understood this long-term view, they would profits would be consistent with.
Yeah, or more aligned.
Right, more aligned. So
if you look at most of the management literature, we look at profit maximization. But what's really the objective? It's firm value maximization. Firm value is not the same as profit maximization. Just saying, correct? And so for some reason, the way we operationalize, if we just stick with shareholder value here, if we maximize it really, we would need to consider the time horizon and the long term. But most of our research does not. And I think if we just scratch absolutely what you said, Jorge, if we just adopt a longer time horizon, it would improve your competitiveness because you also mitigate risk. You need to mitigate climate risks, etc., for example.
Right. So there, in part, if you just thought about it, quote unquote, the right way, you would realize you want to be more sustainable than the current corporation. But I'm just curious, where's the rest of the changes, Anita or anybody else think it's going to come? Is it going to be the demand and customers are going to want sustainable stuff?
Yeah.
Is it going to be the values of the managers? There was a sense right now that changing policies, so like pollution was solved, but that was really kind of like a government solution. They tax pollution and now firms are incentivized not to pollute, but they're still kind of profit maximizing in their own world. So how do you see, what do you see changing to align the social problem and the firm problem?
I think, thanks, Jorge. It's so cool to be here, and thanks, everyone. I think firms are designed to pursue profit. And so I think we're going to see many other types of organizations than only firms that are getting engaged with this problem. My interests have turned toward the pursuit of shared stakeholder interests. So you get, Jorge, you and I get together. We believe that we have a cool idea for, let's say, developing a piece of software that could help a city like the city of Toronto, which is where I'm sitting right now. And we're thrilled that you're all coming and looking forward to welcoming you here to our beautiful city. So the mayor or the town council of the city of Toronto could use to track, let's say, the dumping of illegal waste into the sewer system, let's say. what's our best organizational choice for how to govern our collective effort to accomplish that, Jorge? Do we want to get Francesco and Alenka involved because we know that they care about that and they have skills that are relevant, and maybe we can start a company and we can make all of us shareholders or something like that, and we can pursue that profitably? Or do we want to license that technology and put it on? Maybe we want to put it on an open source platform and go down and march down at the town hall and try to get the mayor's office to deploy it, but in the background also try to encourage local community groups and others to use this software to make their case that something should change. So for me, I'm not thinking only about the firm as the engine of change. I'm thinking about trying to find ways that leaders, like-minded leaders that share interests, can make progress on this agenda, whether it's through government or private action, and then create. I wonder if Andrew Sardar would mind muting. Andrew, would you mind muting? Thank you so much. So they can break down and create subsidiary problems where innovation for profit in the private sector can make a big difference, like competing on battery technology or battery production, right? So you get this kind of constellation, a big ecosystem of effort that's being coordinated through different types of organizations and in different ways. That's how I'm thinking about it.
No, I got it. So in a sense, there's a third layer of civil society kind of organizations that serve besides government and profit maximization to do the extra work.
There are entrepreneurs, there are even firms
that
don't pursue profits because they're privately owned, perhaps owned by private equity. And they've, like Musk even, with some of his initiatives, certainly there are other famous examples like Richard Branson and others. The owners of any entrepreneurial life sciences companies may be the scientists that are working on the bench. They may have equity. They're not trying to maximize short-term profits so much as they are to try to, find a cure for cancer. That matters to them a lot. If they can make money along the way, great. So they've got a kind of dual goals. So firms can be vehicles for advancing the shared interests of their constituents, their employees, their customers, their communities. Firms can work as vehicles for advancing these social goals, but there are so many obligations and constraints associated with running a firm that's not always the most effective way for like-minded scientists to commercialize a cure for cancer. So the details of those arrangements are deep strategy questions for our group. I think Francesco has his hand up.
Yes, we're almost out of time, but maybe just very quickly.
Very quickly, I would like to thank you all, and I would like to emphasize this topic of time, which was raised by Carolina. I'm wondering whether this matters in the response. I see a lot of the discussion in strategy, both in practice and theory, related to short-term impacts. Okay, so we now can measure very easily things related to ESG, to sustainability. Investors care about this. Governments really control many things. So we have a very strong impact on short-term goals. However, when you take into account long-term goals, the measurement of these things becomes much more difficult, and the impact of firms on this long-term goal is much less easily established, also for us as researchers. So I'm wondering what we have to really do to really bring back also the discussion on the long-term goals. And some of these have to do with the challenges that we're facing: health, climate change, social inequality. All these things have to do with long-term impacts that cannot be really quickly measured. So I'm wondering whether we can be much more positive on the short term and a bit less on the long term, and it's where probably we have to contribute more as strategy scholars.
Fantastic. I see some additional comments in the chat, but unfortunately we don't really have the time. So I think that concludes our meeting. I think we all wish we could have a little bit more time, but I think this already gave us great sense of these important issues that we should be discussing. And thank you so much to the two wonderful speakers for really giving us a treat here. This was terrific. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone else has as well. So this concludes our meeting. Thank you, everyone, and see you all in Toronto.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Take care.
See you in Toronto.
Bye. Thank you all.
Bye.